Thank you for joining today's session. We will be getting started shortly. We do have a lot of folks signed up for today's session, and we want to give everyone a moment to log on and get connected so that we can dive into today's session. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I am Jasmine Garrett here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview of the federal and programmatic requirements for grantees of Phase 1 of the Child Care Facilities Improvement Program. A quick housekeeping note, we do suspect that many questions will be answered in today's presentation. However, you are able to write in questions at any point during the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. It is one of your Zoom command options and will allow us to make sure we are able to get back to you and let others see these questions and answers as well. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted to our NJEDA and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available in the next few days. Now to get us started with the presentation, I will shift things over to NJEDA's Chief Economic Security Officer, Tara Colton. Tara?
Thanks, Jasmine. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us this evening. Again, I'm Tara Colton. I'm the Chief Economic Security Officer at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. I have the honor of helping to lead our portfolio of programs supporting child care centers, home-based child cares, as well as all of our work around food security and maternal and infant health. Really excited to be with you tonight. I am also a working mom. Both of my kids have been in full-time care since they were 3 months old. They've been in home-based care. They've been in center-based care. They are now in public school aftercare. It's particularly relevant to be talking to you about the importance of childcare as an economic investment because I'm coming from the same seat where I sat during COVID with my then 4 and 7-year-olds trying to parent them while also trying to work. And we always say that if COVID didn't really emphasize the importance of childcare to New Jersey and the world's economic infrastructure, nothing will. So really excited to be with you tonight. You're going to be spending most of the session hearing from Alex Himmel, who's our extraordinary director of childcare, also a former center director and teacher herself. And I also want to thank our broader childcare team, many of whom will be here during the call tonight answering questions, but thanking again Alex, Erica, Harleni, Abubakar, Rebecca, Damaris, Parishi, Charlie, Danny, and Liam. And one of the points I wanted to reflect on is how notable it is that the state's Economic Development Authority has a child care team and has made such a large investment in supporting this sector. We're really proud that if you look back even just a few years, the investment that was coming from the New Jersey EDA to the child care sector was really minimal. It was not a sector that was something we focused on. You fast forward to Governor Murphy coming into office, really pledging to support a stronger and fairer New Jersey, as well as a lot of champions in the legislature, in our congressional delegation, and look at today, the New Jersey EDA is dedicating $143 million to strengthening the facilities of New Jersey child care providers. That is one of the largest investments of any state in the country. We believe it's the third largest after California and Texas. And those of you on the call are among the 600 child care centers that we have been able to approve for funding. So we're really thrilled to be seeing the impact of these improvements on your facilities. I had the privilege of visiting a center a couple days ago. Try and get to them as often as we can. It just brings joy to our days, but also to hear from the center directors and the early childhood educators about the impact it's made on the children's lives, on what you're hearing from your families, on what you're hearing from your staff, as well as the potential long-term revenue enhancements and cost savings that you're experiencing as a result. So I'm really just excited to be here. You're going to get a lot of clear detail from Alex. I think the last piece that I would emphasize is, and one of the messages we want to get across in this presentation is about some follow-up that we'll have. I know that many of you are at different stages of your project. Some of you are near completion. Some of you haven't started yet. What we feel has made the process so successful to be able to advocate for this generational investment in New Jersey's childcare sector is hearing from providers like you. So we're going to be following up with you in the coming weeks and months with questions about the impact these projects have had on your facilities, the revenue that it's helped you generate, the slots it's helped you open up, the capacity it's expanded. And we ask you to take that really seriously because your stories help us tell a broader story that will hopefully allow us to continue growing the portfolio of programs that we offer at the EDA to support the childcare sector. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, who has really birthed this program and brought it to life in just an absolutely amazing way. And she's going to go through a number of details with you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tara. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight after what I'm sure is a very long day already. But your attendance here is greatly appreciated, and we hope that by the end of it, you'll feel like it was time well spent. So the purpose of today is to go over the many requirements of this program and to make sure that we are collectively and together in partnership being proactive to make sure that we are meeting those requirements together. So we're going to hit on a variety of topics from some of the federal deadlines that are the strong determinants of why we're doing what we're doing. And then, as Tara mentioned, we have about 600 grantees who are at various stages of their projects. So we want to make sure that we're giving information sort of across that continuum and the sort of life cycle of your project so that you know what to expect. You know how to handle certain situations as they come up, and you're feeling like you're well informed. But please note, and I hope you'll hear this often during the presentation, you are not alone. All of the incredible staff that Tara mentioned, along with our team of GPSs, are here to walk alongside you in completing these projects. So Jasmine touched on this again. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And we will do our best to answer questions in real time. We will collect all of these questions and they will help us then draft what we're calling a grantee FAQ, which we will disseminate to all grantees. And we hope that it'll be a resource that you can go to and go back to often when you have questions about, how to handle certain things and just feel like you've got information at your fingertips. We do already have a wide variety of resources on our website. If you're not visiting the website to find what you're looking for, it's highly encouraged. The link is here. There is a whole grantee section. Make sure that you click on the little V next to grantee resources so you can see the full list of resources that are available to you. We've also over the last couple years have made updates to quite a few of the forms that we're using. And the website is where you will find the most recent forms. And we ask you to toss out any of the old forms and start using these new versions. And if we are continuing to get submissions from the old forms, we're unfortunately going to have to go back and ask you to fill them out again. And so we want to sort of avoid that. So if you're not sure if you have the newest version, download it from the website, and then you'll be sure that you do. And then eventually this is where you will also find the FAQs that are developed. So again, with this sort of lens of an approach of being really proactive in managing this grant, we want to start with some of these federal deadlines that are in place and sort of dictating the way in which we're approaching this work. So you all should know that this funding is federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan, which then came to New Jersey. And there are there is a deadline that the funding must be expended. So the expectation here is that all of these dollars by December 31st, 2026 are out the door. Any money that's not used will go back to the feds, and we don't want to do that. And so we want to make sure that they are being used for their intended purpose. So in order to manage that final deadline of the end of 2026, there's a couple key deadlines that are noted here on this slide. Some projects may be granted an extension. We'll talk about those a little bit later in more detail, but the last day that the EDA will approve an extension is March of 2026. The most important deadline here for all of you and for all of your contractors to make a note of is that all construction must be completed by September 15th of 2026. So that means everything's done, your punch list is done, nobody's coming back with a tool to do any more work at your site. And then in order to make sure that the money has gone out the door and your contractors have been paid, we need your payment requests for contractors submitted to the EDA no later than October 1st of 2026. And then if you have FFE, furniture, fixtures, and equipment as part of your project, those disbursement requests need to be submitted to the EDA no later than November 15th of 2026. That will allow, those 2 dates will allow us to do our review process and make sure that we've met all of our requirements and that the funding is sort of off the EDA books, hopefully well ahead of December 31st, 2026. Okay, now we're going to move a little bit into the specifics of the projects themselves. One thing that is really important for the grantees to understand is your role in all of this as a project manager. So there are a couple key areas that you, as the grantee, need to be responsible for oversight and your sort of active participation. So the first area we want to talk about is related to those timelines that I just shared with you. So you now have them, and it is your responsibility to make sure that your contractor is aware of those deadlines and that you are taking them into consideration as you're planning out your projects. So, and in addition to that, the other dates that you need to be paying attention to are the requirements around when you commence a project and when you complete a project. And we will get into those details to provide more clarity. But the message here is you are in charge of your timeline. And it's your responsibility to manage and make sure that you're meeting all of the requirements of this grant. The second thing to help you manage those timelines is this notion that we are here in partnership with you. And the more communicative you are with your GPS, the better off you're going to be. And we can help troubleshoot any barriers that you might be facing, helping you, make certain requests in order to make sure that your project is progressing the way that it needs to. And if you have any questions at all about how you should be handling a situation, please call us. We're here to help you. And we're here to sort of figure some things out together alongside you. The next thing is related to the relationship with your contractor. So this is a reminder that you are the customer. You have signed a contract with your contractor and you have agreed on expectations of your contractor in order to complete your project. If contractors are not meeting your expectations, or there are other barriers or challenges, you should just remind yourself, like, hey, this is my money and this is important to me and I have a say in this. And so you are not a silent partner in any of this. The last thing is related to your budget. These are your funds. How you spend them is very much your responsibility to keep track of how they're being spent. Do you have enough money? All of those good things. That's on you. And so we are reminding you that you have a very significant role to play in that space. Sorry, I'm having a, here we go. Okay. We are now moving on to pre-con meetings. Some of you who are participating tonight may have already completed your pre-con meetings. Some of you may have not. So we just want to make sure that we're talking through some of the specifics for anyone who has not attended a pre-con meeting and are preparing to do so. We ask providers to not start any construction until both you and your contractors have attended a pre-con meeting. This is a requirement. We can't sort of get around this. So please keep this in mind when managing conversations with your contractor as to when construction can or can start. A reminder that grantees have 90 days from executing your contract with the EDA to submit the contracts with your contractors as well as their insurance. Please don't wait to get this process started. It can take some time. There oftentimes need to be a couple iterations of the contracts to make sure all the requirements and the required language are in the contracts before we can invite you to a pre-con meeting. So please don't wait. Try and take care of this as soon as you possibly can. And the biggest thing here is that the longer it takes you to attend a meeting, the longer you'll have to wait to start your construction. We do have a contractor extension available to folks. Should their contractor pull out of their project while you're in that 90-day period or before your pre-con meeting. If your contractor can no longer do the work or isn't available, you can request this extension, which will give you an additional 45 days to identify a new contractor, get quotes, and we'll have to sort of collect a lot of the same information that we asked of you during the application phase, where we'll need to, ensure that the contractors are on the Department of Labor Public Works registry certification, and they go through a debarment check and other checks. So, but again, this extension form is only for grantees prior to their pre-construction meeting. Okay, next we're moving on to project commencement. So the EDA defines a commencement as a contractor deposit being requested, an FFE reimbursement being requested, or a shovel and ground, which in other words means actual construction has started. That one of those three equals a commencement in our book. And as it's outlined in your grant agreement, projects must commence within 12 months of your closing date. You cannot request an extension to commence your project. So there is no workaround outside of these 12 months to get started. So with that, we are highly recommending to grantees that if you do not have a confirmed or even a tentative start date with your contractor, that you call them first thing tomorrow and start to have those conversations. Again, remembering the lens of all of the deadlines that are sort of dictating the remainder of this grant. So please do that in the morning if you are unsure of when you're planning to start. Projects who miss this deadline, so if you get to 12 months past your closing date, will experience an event of default, and you will have a short turnaround time to address any of those issues and get yourself back on track. And again, a reminder, just keep your GPS informed and updated on the status of your project, how it's going, has it started, we think we're halfway through, we're almost done. All of that information is super valuable for us to keep a pulse on how things are going and progressing with your projects. One of the biggest things our team manages are project changes and cost overruns. Some of you might be experiencing this already. If you haven't, or if you've done another construction project, like stuff always comes up, and small or large tweaks need to happen to the scope of the project. So this slide, we're going to be talking about those changes and also accessing your cost overruns. So there is a form that is available for grantees to fill out to make these requests. And I want to stress again, this is your responsibility as the grantee to complete. You may need or want to consult with your contractor on how to fill it out, but there are pieces of the form that only you as the grantee would know. So handing that form solely over to your contractor is only going to delay the process and the potential approval of those requests. There are sections in the form where we're asking you about why you're requesting the change, and other questions of that nature. And we're asking you to be as detailed as possible so that we understand fully the request and why it's being made. If sections of the form are not completed, we're going to have to send it back. It's going to delay the process, and I don't think anybody wants to be in that position. The form should be submitted using the document upload link that you all have access to for your specific project. And if you have any questions or you're not sure how to fill out part of the form, please contact your GPS. They'll be very happy to help you. So when you're making these requests and you're asking to modify your scope of work, we just want to keep a couple things in mind here. Again, please be descriptive in your explanation as to what it is you're requesting and why you're requesting it. Excuse me, sorry. Oh, sorry, going in the wrong direction. Pardon me, everyone. So sorry about that. You are going to be asked to submit a new itemized quote from your contractor that details what those changes are going to be and the costs associated with them. You're also going to need to supply photos demonstrating the need or the issue that you're trying to address in the request. During your application, submitted to us a scope of work. What were the improvements that you wanted to do? Your grant was approved based on those initial requests. Any requests to add something new to your scope of work will only be considered if you are experiencing an emergency. So an example of an emergency is you had a pipe burst and you had a flood and there were things that need to be addressed as a result of the flood that were not in your original scope of work. Those would be considered for new improvements. However, if you have cost savings or decide, oh, I don't want to replace my windows, I want to instead replace my flooring, those kinds of requests are not going to be considered. So again, new improvements will only be considered in the cases of an emergency. And the other thing that you're going to want to keep in mind as you're requesting these project changes is what is that going to do for your timeline? Projects must, once construction is started, must be completed within 12 months. So if the request that you're making is potentially going to require more than that 12 months, you may need to request an extension. But also please keep in mind that at some point in early 2026, we will not be allowing any more extensions because projects must be completed by September of 2026. If you are requesting to repurpose funds, there are some cases where we will allow for that. So if your original approved scope of work includes funding for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, which we call FFE, you could repurpose those FFE funds towards hard costs, construction costs, if you need additional money. That can happen at any time. If your project had FFE in its original scope of work and you want to repurpose construction funding to go towards FFE, we may consider that. However, it will not be considered until after all of your construction is completed. We want to make sure that the construction portion of all of these projects has all the funding that it needs in order to be completed before we start moving money around. In some cases, project changes are going to require that you tap into your cost overrun. A reminder that your cost overrun is up to 15% of your grant award. Every grantee has access to that, should they need it. A reminder that those dollars are your only contingency and that projects must be funded 100% with this money. So the EDA goes through a very rigorous process, keeping these things in mind as cost overrun requests come to us. In order to know how much money you have to use for these cases, again, a reminder, please know what your budget is, know how much you've spent, and just keep track of those dollars. Any requests over 50% of your total cost overrun are going to need a very strong justification, especially if you're working with multiple contractors as part of your project. And in some cases, depending on what's going on, the EDA may come back to you and say, you're going to need to reduce your scope of work in order to manage this budget and not back yourself into a corner and a place where you've totally run out of money and the project is incomplete. The last reminder here is that at any time during the process, we understand that projects may lose contractors for a variety of different reasons. Contractors can be replaced should they need be. A reminder that replacement contractors must be a Department of Labor Public Works certified contractor. And they're going to have to go through the process to make sure that they meet all of our criteria and their costs are reasonable and things of that nature, sort of mirroring a lot of the process that you experience during the application phase. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about project completion. So the EDA defines completion as to when all construction, and if applicable, and you have FFE as part of your scope of work, has been paid out. So that essentially means all the dollars going out for your project have been paid to whomever they need to be, and you're done. That's our definition of completion. A reminder that the program requires projects be completed within 12 months of starting. To process your final payment to contractors, the EDA will conduct a site visit to make sure that the work has been completed. And once that visit has happened, then the EDA will work on payment of that final 10% retainment to any and all contractors who haven't received it. A reminder again, all construction must be completed by September 15th of 2026, and all of your FFE requests must be submitted by November 15th, 2026. And then the last piece, Tara's touched on this in our introduction. So about 60 days after your project is complete, you're going to receive a survey from the EDA where we're going to try to collect some really valuable stories, data, and information about, as Tara mentioned, the impact that this funding had on your programs, had on your community, had on your capacity, your enrollment, the staffing, the families. This is probably the most important piece of information that you will give EDA so that, as Tara mentioned, we can tell the story of impact to anyone and everyone who will listen as to why this was such a valuable investment in the early childhood sector. So please take the time to fill it out. it will be really essential for all of us, and to get that information from you. Okay. So there will be cases, as we've talked about, where a project may need more than the 12 months to be completed. There's lots of different reasons why this could happen. We've seen cases where there's been like supply chain issues, or delays in shipping, or the result of a project change and new materials need to be purchased. It could be a variety of things. And so every grantee for the moment is eligible or may request up to 2 3-month extensions. We will give them out one at a time. So please request an additional 3 months to start with, and then should more time be needed, we could potentially approve a second extension for you. We ask that these requests be made in advance of your completion date. And we need to know sort of what the new timeline looks like, should you be granted this extension. So again, this is a case of like more information is better to help us understand sort of what's happening on the ground and what it is that you're experiencing. This should also be filled out by you, the grantee, but if you want some support from your contractors to sort of explain some of the technicalities, that's absolutely fine. But this should come to us sort of in the grantee's voice. And then come March of 2026, the EDA will not be able to issue any more extensions. So that's just another reminder of one of those deadlines. Okay. The other critical piece are what we call our compliance. There are 4 areas that I'm going to talk about that if they are missing or outdated, they do result in event of default as laid out in your grant agreement. So the first one I want to talk about, which I think everybody's really well aware of, the tax clearance certificate. Those are only good for 180 days. And there must be a valid one on file with the EDA throughout the duration of your project. So if you get a notification that yours is going to be expiring soon, please take action on it as quickly as possible and turn that around to us, and then you won't have to worry about it anymore. But if we don't have this on file, there's certain payments that we won't be able to issue, or certain other actions that we won't be able to take if we don't have that on file. The second one is your certificate of liability insurance that also has to be on file throughout the duration of your project. That being said, the EDA, in partnership with many of our sister agencies like the Department of Children and Families and Department of Human Services, knows and is well aware that childcare providers are having issues in some cases with maintaining their coverage, or their rates are going up significantly. So if you are finding yourself in one of those difficult situations, please contact your GPS and let them know sort of what you're experiencing, so that we can sort of come up with a plan of how we want to be supportive to you as you're figuring that out on your end. We understand that you need to have this insurance to continue to hold your license. And so it's delicate and we understand, but let us know if you're in that situation. The next one is enrollment in Grow NJ Kids, which is New Jersey's quality rating and improvement system. The requirement is that grantees must enroll in the program within 12 months of executing your grant agreement. We do verify those enrollments with DHS to make sure that they're happening. The piece here that I want to be really clear about is that even if your project is completed, you still need to enroll in Grow NJ Kids. So if you haven't done so already, and you need to, or your 12 months is coming up, please start that process. It does take several weeks to complete the full enrollment. And so again, this is something that you don't want to wait for to the very last minute. And then the last reminder is that your grant agreement speaks to the fact that you must maintain your DCF license at the location where the improvements happened for 4 years after executing your grant agreement. And like Grow NJ Kids, we are verifying that with DCF. So if you are considering moving or a change of ownership or selling your business, something of that nature, please contact your GPS and they'll be able to help you figure out what steps may need to be taken in order for you to stay compliant with your grant agreement. Okay. FFE disbursements. So not everybody who's a grantee has FFE, furniture, fixtures, and equipment as part of their scope of work. If you do, these are a few reminders that we have for you. Since we are paying you directly and we want to make sure that the money goes to the correct bank account, when you get a requisition form from your GPS, please don't forget to attach a voided check. That way we make sure that we're sending money to the right account. If you are going to be on vacation, if you're going to be out of town and you have either an FFE disbursement or a contractor disbursement in the works, please make some accommodations and designate someone else who can sign off on the paperwork so that there are not delays. What I sort of equate this to is imagine if one of your parents went on vacation and didn't pay you tuition for the whole time that they were on that vacation. I don't think many people would be pretty happy about that. We need funding to go out the door, first of all, but the fact of the matter is that these contractors have provided a service and we should be paying them for that service as quickly as we can. If you don't, it will delay your project. It will cause all kinds of delays, and we want to avoid that. So put someone else in charge of signing off on those requests if you're going to be unavailable. Another reminder about the invoices or the receipts that you're submitting to us to show proof of purchases. The invoices must show the full amount of what's been paid. And the photos need to show items unboxed and in the facility. So for example, if you're purchased tables and chairs for your classrooms, we want to see them set up in the classroom, sort of where they're going to be in place. Or if you've bought a bunch of fine motor or gross motor materials, we want to see those sort of unpacked and in place on shelves somewhere where the kids can access them to sort of know this is where that they're going to live from this point forward. We have a few grantees who have very large FFE amounts. They're spending a lot of their funding in this way. We want to encourage you to start buying things as quickly as you can, and you do not need to submit one large disbursement request. You can split it up into smaller reimbursements. And actually that would, in most cases, make it much easier for it to be processed and for us to repay you that funding. So don't hesitate to chunk it out a little bit. And it just will make for a smoother process. The other thing is if you've decided to purchase something different than you've been approved for, that may be allowed, but you want to check in with your GPS to make sure whatever that replacement is actually eligible. And you're going to want to do that before you purchase it, because the last thing that we would want is for you to purchase it and then be told it's not eligible, and then you're out of pocket for whatever those costs are. So when in doubt, check in with your GPS just to make sure everything's good. So what's next? We all have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a lot of amazing projects underway, and some soon commencing. The hope here is that the information provided tonight is just gonna help make that whole process much smoother for you. As Jasmine mentioned, we're going to post this webinar on our webpage for future reference. So it'll be a point of reference for you to go back to and say, what did they say in that webinar? Let me look at the slides for a reminder. So we're going to make that accessible to you as quickly as we possibly can. And as I mentioned at the start, all of the questions that were in the chat, we're going to take, and that will help us produce a frequently asked questions document for grantees to be another source of information and resource to go to if you have questions. And then I know I sound like a broken record. Utilize your GPS as a resource. They know everything about the program, and if they don't, they can find the answer for you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, for taking time out of your evening. We appreciate you. We appreciate everything that you're doing for the kids in New Jersey, and have a wonderful evening, and hope to see you all very soon.